When an incredible opportunity revealed a cleaning lady's hidden genius, a millionaire's life was forever changed. Cindy wiped across the glossy conference room table, the remnants of last night's brainstorming sessions fresh on her mind. She caught sight of the shiny tech accolades lining the walls, symbols of success that felt worlds away from her reality. Her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and frustration, the pride of a job well done and the frustration of being invisible in a place bursting with ambition. She wanted more than the cramped two-bedroom apartment she called home, where her children gathered around a table too small for their dreams. Each day, she wove stories of hope for them, tales of possibility that echoed through the dilapidated walls of their world. Yet, as she scrubbed away the grime, an unexpected gleam caught her eye. The software that had consumed the engineers for months had a glaring flaw. Cindy hesitated, scrubbing furiously, her mind racing like a pinball. Could she really say anything? Years of working in shadows had ingrained in her a sense of doubt. The whispers of past experience echoed louder than a siren, reminding her that voices like hers, the voices of cleaning ladies, were routinely ignored. The bustling office hummed with the energy of change, but for every grand idea discussed over coffee, she felt the heavy weight of her station clasping her tightly. In her chest, uncertainty battled with the flickering voice of her own intelligence, igniting a flame of courage she had buried long ago. Before she could make her way to the doors and leave the world of the tech elite behind, she crossed paths with Jonathan, the arrogant lead engineer. His dismissal reflected in his smirk as he flicked a glance her way, the very look that had her questioning her worth. "You clean really well," he chuckled with the air of superiority. Those mere words ignited a sting inside her. How many times had she pushed thoughts of her intellect into the corners? This time, she lingered for a moment, contemplating whether to speak up. The battle within raged as she turned away, her heart heavy with frustration. Defeat leered at her, its grip tightening. That moment, heavy with tension, pulled her spirit low. Who did she think she was? Just a cleaning lady. But then, on the street, a familiar face emerged from the shadows of her past. Mr. Thompson, a mentor from her college days, locked eyes with her, a glimmer of recognition breaking through the clouds. "Cindy. I always knew you had a fire," he said. His words sparked something in her, a flicker of belief that she had long discarded like worn-out shoes. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days turned into a countdown, the gravity of the upcoming meeting at the tech company gripped Cindy like a vice. The engineers were days away from unveiling their software, the one she believed was fundamentally flawed. Thoughts twisted within her as she held the weight of her potential message like a hot coal. Would they laugh her out? Would she feel that same all-consuming invisibility wash over her again? Every ounce of confidence eked out of her stubborn resolve, fueling an internal war. She'd have to confront the arrogant dismissiveness she had faced before. With her children's futures at stake, the time for silence was over. Standing before the bathroom mirror, she glimpsed herself, this cleaning lady who had dreams larger than her paycheck. The cold reality loomed, her words might mean nothing. The clock was ticking down to the moment that could reshape her life, a confrontation. That would either ignite a revolution or reinforce her invisibility. The stakes had never felt higher, and as the world outside continued to turn, tearing her thoughts tight, Cindy steeled herself for the battle ahead, a quiet determination blooming within her. Would her once unheard voice finally resonate where it mattered most? The thought hummed in her mind, a siren call as she prepared for the inevitable, a moment she could no longer afford to ignore. Cindy took a deep breath, her reflection staring back at her with wide eyes filled with uncertainty and fierce resolve. The months of scrubbing and polishing felt trivial compared to the enormity of her upcoming decision. Every fiber of her being urged her to walk away, to preserve the fragile comfort of her current existence, but the pull of her ambition clawed insistently at her conscience. She envisioned her children's faces, their bright dreams suspended just beyond the reach of their current reality. "What would they think of me?" she whispered to herself. They admired her hard work yet remained blissfully unaware of the depths of her mind, of the innovations she once dreamed up in college, sketching ideas that danced between the margins of her textbooks. It wasn't just about the software flaw but a chance to break free from the mold society had cast her into. With each passing minute, Cindy felt the weight of the approaching presentation loomed larger. She knew that speaking up could shake the very foundations of what she believed to be true about herself. But could she risk it all for a voice that had always been muffled by the echoes of laughter from those who dismissed her? The fear of rejection gnawed at her stomach, yet the warmth of Mr. Thompson's encouraging words kept flickering inside. Like a candle in the dark. Deciding to act, she formulated a plan. It was no longer enough to merely express her concern, she needed to prepare, to strategize, to arm herself with knowledge. Instead of cowering in self-doubt, Cindy would walk into that meeting prepared with detailed examples of the flaws she had noticed, bolstered by her own insights about the software's functionality. Every moment of hesitation spurred her action. She would not let fear dictate her future. Returning home later, she traded her cleaning supplies for her children's forgotten school assignments, determined to study the depths of the software architecture. Hours morphed into blurry visions as she pored over her old notes, guiding her through algorithms and coding principles she had once known and now had to relearn with fervor. The clock ticked into the early hours of the morning, consciousness fading but resolve sharply honed. Deep down, the knowledge that one small step could lead to monumental changes drove her. The next morning, she brewed a strong cup of coffee, each sip fueling her resolve. As she donned her work uniform and stared at the mirror once more, she saw the spark of a warrior. Without the power suits or polished titles that adorned others in the tech world, Cindy had her intellect, her insights, and her lived experience, elements that could no longer be overlooked. With her heart beating faster than ever, she entered the office, the usual hustle around her heightened to an electric hum. The anticipation hovered in the air, it felt tangible, thick like the humid summer afternoon she had spent waiting for the storm to break. The meeting room awaited her presence, the battleground where her voice would either burst forth or fall into silence. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer to the door. Her mind screamed with fear, but the whispers of hope were louder. The moment of truth had arrived. This was not just about fixing a piece of software. This was about reclaiming her narrative, about sculpting a different future for her family. Cindy raised her hand to knock, her heart pounding a solemn rhythm. Would they accept her insight or push her back into the shadows? The words she had practiced echoed endlessly in her mind as she braced herself for the pushback she anticipated. As she stood there, ready to confront the dismissiveness that had haunted her for so long, the door swung open to reveal the board's expectant faces. They looked at her, surprised but curious. The pivotal moment was now. Would she step forward and claim her voice? Pushing through her fears, she began to speak, but her confidence began to waver as Jonathan's condescending smirk loomed again in her mind. The real test awaited her, not just the presentation, but standing against the very perception of her worth. Would she find the strength to shatter their expectations? Cindy's heart raced as she opened her mouth, the words spilling forth in a rush. She articulated the issues she had discerned with the software, each explanation meticulously woven together with the threads of her rediscovered knowledge. With every utterance, she felt her confidence swell, rising to the surface where it had long been hidden beneath layers of self-doubt. But just as she precariously balanced on the edge of her revelation, she caught Jonathan's eye across the room. His initial surprise faded into that familiar smirk, a patronizing reminder of her past dismissals. "Interesting points, Cindy," Jonathan interjected, his tone dripping with skepticism, "but have you considered the ramifications of implementing such changes? This software is complex, and we are overlooking crucial flaws that impact user experience and efficiency," she countered, surprising even herself with the conviction in her voice. The air in the meeting room shifted, a palpable tension rippling through her audience. Instead of dwelling in the anticipation of rebuttal, she leaned into the moment, flipping the narrative that had once trapped her. Cindy continued to present her findings, launching into specifics: the lines of code, the user interface elements, and the broader implications on client satisfaction. She could almost sense her colleagues' shifting perceptions. Were they finally beginning to see her as an equal? She spoke with authority, yet a flicker of doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if she didn't have what it took to back up her claims? But in this crucible of confrontation, she unearthed something within herself, an ember of determination that began to blaze brighter. She was no longer confined to the shadows of anonymity, she was confronting not just her peers but also her fear of being unseen. When the presentation concluded, she sat back down, her heart still pounding, but an unfamiliar surge of pride washed over her. "Cindy, your perspectives have some merit," Mr. Thompson said, a note of respect in his voice that felt like a balm to her battered confidence. His acknowledgement was a small victory in her ongoing battle, yet she could tell that Jonathan's smugness lingered like a cloud overhead. "I still question the practicality of your suggestions given the timeline," Jonathan said, shaking his head dismissively. "Have you actually worked on software like this before?" The challenge hung in the air, teasing the edges of her resolve. "I haven't worked on your team's software," Cindy acknowledged, seeking to diffuse the tension, "but I've experience with similar applications. This is about improvement, not hierarchy." The statement rolled off her tongue with surprising ease, a ripple of applause echoing in her mind for embracing her narrative. The discussion evolved into a volley of ideas, half-formed but charged with possibility. For the first time, Cindy felt the collective energy shift, as though her colleagues were pulling her into a collaborative space rather than pushing her away. Neural pathways ignited with the thrill of being heard. She was not just a part of the team, she was an integral voice at the table. After the meeting, Cindy took a moment to breathe again, standing in the corridor where sunlight streamed through large windows. The walls that once felt suffocating now whispered of opportunity. She turned the corner only to find Mr. Thompson waiting for her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You did well," he said, offering her a genuine smile. "Your insights were powerful, and you made quite an impression. I'd like to discuss how we can leverage your understanding further." Hope bloomed within her, pushing aside lingering shadows. Perhaps she could become more than a voice in the dark, a catalyst for change within her workplace, just like she had longed for. Just as she was about to respond, a glimmer of hesitation flashed across her mind. Would this lead to more scrutiny from Jonathan? Would there be pushback now that her potential was surfacing? The unease seeped into her thoughts, darkening the edges of her newfound confidence. What would it take to continue this journey? Would she have the strength to face a new kind of challenge ahead? This was only the beginning, and a deeper confrontation awaited her within the very fabric of her career. She needed to discover not only how to maintain her position but also how to navigate the power dynamics that came with newfound visibility. As they walked together towards a conference room buzzing with the chatter of post-meeting excitement, she caught a glimpse of Jonathan lingering in the hallway, his eyes narrowed, calculating. The depth of this evolving struggle churned in her stomach, whispering promises of a storm ahead. The time had come to face the realities of not just career advancement but her own self-worth. Would she be able to harness her voice to withstand the challenges it would inevitably bring? In the days following the meeting, Cindy found herself oscillating between exhilaration and apprehension. The praise from Mr. Thompson echoed in her mind, yet a sense of dread lurked just beneath the surface. With her visibility now heightened, she was cognizant of the sharks circling the whispers of doubt that might spill from Jonathan's lips, the condescending comments disguised as leadership advice. Each morning she walked into the office, she could feel the weight of expectation anchoring her down. She donned her professional armor, a tailored blazer and sensible shoes, each piece a reminder of her newfound commitment to herself. At her desk, she meticulously organized her notes and ideas, ruminating over possibilities for upcoming projects. The thrill of conceptualizing solutions was intoxicating, yet she grappled with the growing need to defend her ideas against potential attacks. One afternoon, while poring over the user feedback reports, Cindy noted patterns that had previously escaped her. Users were struggling with functionality that seemed intuitive to designers but baffled the clientele. She was at a turning point, teetering between obscurity and influence. As she constructed her next presentation, this insight became her catalyst. Cindy immersed herself in research, reaching out to trusted colleagues to gather a breadth of perspectives. Operating outside the confines of her immediate team felt liberating. She was gathering the wisdom of others, weaving it into her own narrative of progress. She meticulously validated each suggestion, armed with facts and statistics, an arsenal against Jonathan's inevitable protestation. With each passing day, her confidence further solidified into an unassailable foundation. However, an unexpected encounter simmered unresolved in her mind. A small group had gathered around Jonathan near the coffee pot, laughter erupting like the bubbles in a shaken soda. Caught in the crossfire, Cindy overheard snippets of their conversation. The implication of her prior presentation was a joke, a punchline delivered with a flourish by Jonathan, who seemed to revel in the moment. It stung, and for a heartbeat, she considered whether this was truly the environment where her talents could flourish. Fueled by indignation, she rehearsed an assertive comeback in her mind, plotting each word carefully. But as the waves of anger receded, clarity emerged. She realized that stooping to respond in kind would only reinforce the narrative Jonathan perpetuated. Instead, she channeled her energy into focusing on what her role could truly mean, not just to her but to those she aspired to influence. She was no longer interested in petty rivalries, it was time to carve out her own impact. Later, she presented her latest findings to Mr. Thompson. His receptiveness confirmed her instincts, and an idea began to crystallize: what if she could initiate a user testing panel? Gathering direct feedback from users could both validate her insights and bolster her position within the team. Brilliant concept, Cindy, Mr. Thompson praised, nodding enthusiastically. Initiate the planning phase and loop in the marketing department. With their input, we can better target our next software iteration. That exhilaration she felt at the initial presentation surged anew. Yet, the moment also brought an undercurrent of fear. How would Jonathan react? Would he find an opportunity to undermine her efforts, to downplay the importance of user feedback? But deep down, she understood that it was now or never. This was her chance to push through any barriers and reclaim her narrative as both a leader and an innovator. As they interacted over the specifics of the user panel, Cindy could sense the magnetic shift of her colleagues' attitudes. She saw acceptance morphing into admiration. The prospect of being seen not just as a member of the team but as a leading force filled her with a new sense of purpose. But the battle she faced would not merely consist of asserting herself in meetings or navigating office dynamics. A looming confrontation awaited, one that would test her resilience against Jonathan's insidious undermining. As she glanced towards the hallway, catching sight of him, she felt a renewed resolve stirring within her. It was time to amplify her voice and let her genius shine through the noise. Her journey wouldn't just be about overcoming Jonathan's challenges but about continuously discovering what she was truly capable of. The dawning realization previewed a decisive moment ahead, a fork in the road where her actions would solidify her role in this transformation. Little did she know that the upcoming presentation would not only crystallize her efforts but would spark a confrontation that would change everything, a manifestation of both her growth and the challenges she had yet to face. Would she emerge unscathed, or would shadows from her past threaten the light she had cultivated? Cindy's excitement for the user testing panel electrified her mornings. Each day, she dove deeper into preparation, outlining surveys and identifying key user demographics. The support from Mr. Thompson acted as a wind at her back, propelling her forward despite the undercurrents of doubt from colleagues like Jonathan. But every exhale brought a gnawing awareness of the storm that was brewing. With her presentation date approaching, Cindy felt an urgency coursing through her veins. The office dynamics shifted subtly, whispers followed her as she walked past Jonathan, an air of judgment clinging to his presence. She braced herself, reminding herself of her purpose. This was no longer merely about proving herself to those who doubted her. It was about creating a significant impact, shaping the product to enhance user experiences. On a particularly intense afternoon, she received an email from the marketing department requesting a brief meeting. As her heart raced, she wondered if they had doubts about her proposed tests. Would Jonathan's sly remarks infiltrate their discussions, planting the seeds of uncertainty in her plans? She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she had cultivated a formidable foundation built on research and collaboration. There was no time for self-doubt. In the small conference room, she encountered Samantha from marketing, a sharp and data-driven strategist who wore glasses perched lightly on her nose. Cindy quickly found common ground, discussing the goals of the user panel and exchanging ideas on the types of questions that would yield meaningful insights. Samantha's enthusiasm was palpable, and for a moment, the pressures of skepticism shifted into optimistic camaraderie. However, as the meeting progressed, Cindy noticed a shift in Samantha's demeanor when Jonathan joined them uninvited. His presence demanded attention, shifting the air palpably. He launched into a well-crafted critique of the user feedback approach, undermining the panel outright with questionable statistics that undermined the value of user input. It felt like a sharpened knife aimed straight at Cindy's chest. Cindy struggled to maintain her composure, edging towards the precipice of panic. She could feel her well-researched arguments teetering on the brink of collapse with each of Jonathan's dismissive comments. After another calculated jab, she decided to confront him directly, desperation igniting her resolve. "Jonathan, I appreciate your input, but the purpose of gathering user feedback is to align our product with actual user experiences, not just assumptions," she stated, steadfastly meeting his gaze. The challenge hung thick in the air, and she could hear silence pulsating around them, the tension a palpable entity. She sensed Samantha's eyes shifting between the two of them, her expression gauging the strength of their confrontation. Jonathan smirked, clearly enjoying the dramatic standoff. "And what makes you an expert on their experiences, Cindy? You've spent more time in design meetings than with actual users." Cindy swallowed her instinct to step back. The words stung, but they also sparked a flame. "You're right. But that's why we're initiating the user panel to bridge that gap. I'm not pretending to have all the answers, but collaboratively, we can discover them." Jonathan shifted uncomfortably, the smile fading slightly, and Cindy capitalized on the moment, her voice now firm and unwavering as she detailed her plan, a vivid picture of how the user panel could offer vital insights into product enhancements. As the discussion continued, she noticed Samantha's growing interest, the lines of tension on her face softening. But within, Cindy felt the weight of impending fallout with Jonathan. As he fiddled with his cufflinks, a flurry of thoughts whirled in her mind. Could this stand provide her the recognition she sought, or would it merely set her up for further attacks? With their meeting reaching a close, she knew she had to fortify her resolve. Should she steer clear of triggering Jonathan's ire or stand firm against any future inappropriate remarks? She realized that the navigational skills she would require were as vital as the data she gathered for the panel. Her heart raced, facing an imminent clash as she re-entered the office space. Would her confrontation spark newfound respect or ignite an even fiercer defense from Jonathan? As she felt the weight of eyes upon her, her mind swirled with anticipation. A storm was brewing, and she stood ready at the eye. The moment had come to learn just how strong her growth would prove to be, even when facing an adversary whom she considered more a nemesis than a colleague. Cindy maneuvered through the cluttered office space, her mind racing as she replayed her earlier confrontation with Jonathan. The room hummed with energy, but it felt alien to her. Colleagues exchanged glances that felt heavy with judgment. She could feel the weight of their scrutiny on her shoulders, pressing down like an anvil. Still, the rush of adrenaline pulsed through her veins, fueling her need for progress. She needed a moment to breathe, to re-establish her focus. Slipping into the nearest restroom, Cindy leaned against the cool tile wall, allowing the reality of her confrontation to sink in. The fear of Jonathan's disdain hung in the air like smoke, but intuitively, she understood that it wasn't just his approval she craved. It was the acknowledgement of her competencies, the validation of her innovative approach. She had a mission, one that extended beyond the judgment of a single person. She took a deep breath, lowered her shoulders, and quietly recited her own rebuttal to Jonathan's criticism. Confidence surged as she strung together success scenarios in her mind, envisioning how user testing would illuminate the path towards smarter product development. This was not just her moment, it was a critical juncture that would pave the way toward gaining credibility and empowering her voice in the workplace. As the hours rolled by, anticipation and anxiety collided within her. The user panel was going to happen, and she couldn't afford to let Jonathan's skepticism permeate her plans. Despite his attempts to undermine her, she needed to present a united front, working with her colleagues instead of against them. When the day of the user panel arrived, she walked into the brightly lit conference room, a mixture of excitement and dread bubbling up inside her. The setup was sleek and polished, showcasing a large screen that displayed the metrics she had spent countless hours refining. Then came the users themselves, a diverse group whose insights were invaluable. She could feel her heart racing as she introduced herself, reminding herself of the purpose that lay behind her nerves. Today isn't just about feedback, it's about understanding the users and how our product fits into their lives, she stated, her voice steady, projecting the authority she had been working to cultivate. The group of users sat in front of her, their faces open and engaged. As she moved through her presentation, the initial apprehension began to dissipate, replaced by a feeling of connection, but a familiar face illuminated by the overhead lights made her spine stiffen. Jonathan had decided to stroll in, arms crossed defiantly. Cindy couldn't shake the way his air of criticism could chill the warmth of the moment. Yet, she pressed on, steadfast in her belief that the data would speak volume on her behalf. After presenting the core findings from the user testing, she turned to the users, inviting honest feedback.
If you have suggestions on what we can improve, I genuinely want to hear them. Your voices matter.
As comments and ideas flowed, her heart soared with every word of affirmation. Users shared how the product had simplified their daily tasks, shaped new habits, and connected them to important resources. Their insights were the gold she had envisioned, and as their experiences crystallized a clearer picture of the product's potential, she felt vindicated. Jonathan, on the other hand, seemed disdainful, fidgeting in his chair as the synergy in the room grew. His presence began to lose its power over her. The challenge was now shifting from his sabotaging criticisms to the constructive input of her users. It was as though their collective energy whitewashed the lingering shadows he cast, yet, before the panel drew to a close, Jonathan raised his hand. Cindy, it's great that you're collecting feedback, but how will you ensure this isn't just another meeting that leads to no real change? The challenge landed squarely on her shoulders again.
Would her newfound confidence withstand another attack?
In that fraught moment, she embraced the tension instead of
shying away. Jonathan, that's a valid point. But the commitment to implement changes based on this feedback lies not just with me, it will require our entire team's dedication and collaboration.
This is where I hope we can direct our attention next, for it's through our synergy that real change will be realized.
With her heart pounding, she shot him a look firm yet unyielding.
The battle she thought she needed to win with Jonathan now felt trivial against the larger goal. The challenge was no longer about defending her position, it was about amplifying the voices of the users who validated her vision. Cindy had taken steps toward acknowledging her strength, but at what cost? The confrontation with Jonathan lingered like an unshaken specter in her mind, and with newfound confidence came the realization that she must navigate both accolades and adversaries.
Could her growth withstand yet another round of scrutiny from him?
As she locked eyes with Jonathan, she felt the stakes of her journey rise once more. The time had come to redefine what it truly meant to grow amid hostility, and she could sense that the beginning of that legacy was poised right before her. Cindy exited the conference room, her pulse still racing from the blend of triumph and tension. She had spoken her piece against Jonathan, but as she walked down the bustling hallway, self-doubt crept back in. His question about the implementation of feedback echoed in her mind, a relentless whisper challenging the authenticity of her achievements. Taking the long route to her desk, she observed her colleagues. Some engaged in animated discussions about upcoming projects, while others hunched over their screens, absorbed in their tasks. A sense of isolation threaded through her. Here she was, trying to push boundaries, yet feeling the weight of a culture that seemed to resist her ambitions. The reality of her journey began to crystallize. This battle was not solely against Jonathan, it was against a workplace that often preferred maintaining the status quo to embracing the chaos of innovation. Beside her desk lay a pristine stack of notebooks, untouched but full of potential. Each blank page hung unfilled, much like her ambitions felt at that moment. Rather than succumb to the looming uncertainty, she picked one up. She began brainstorming ideas to leverage user feedback and transform it into actionable insights. Her thoughts flowed quickly, ideas merging and colliding, igniting inspiration. The challenge was not simply about defending her ground, it was about championing a new narrative for the product and her career. As she scribbled, she realized that the next phase of her journey involved harnessing those user insights into a coherent strategy, one that linked every suggestion to tangible development. She jotted down plans for a workshop to engage her team in building a roadmap for future product enhancements. It was a move designed to foster collaboration and innovation. Each stroke of the pen extracted her determination from the crucible of doubt. But as the ideas took shape, Jonathan's voice intruded once more. Would he scoff at her suggestions during their next team meeting? Would he dismiss her initiative as another whim? That fear clawed at her inner resolve. The battle for her credibility felt insurmountable. And yet, she understood that if she allowed his opinions to dictate her vision, she would forfeit the very thing she sought, a voice that mattered in her workplace. She needed allies, other co-workers who could share her vision and elevate the product's evolution. Immediately, she thought of Anna, who had previously shown enthusiasm during meetings about user engagement. They had exchanged ideas informally, and Cindy could sense there was potential for forming a powerhouse team. Rejuvenated, she found herself gravitating toward Anna's workspace. As she approached, a wave of determination washed over her. "Hey, Anna," she began, her voice firm yet inviting,
can we brainstorm some ideas together?
I have insights from the user panel that could drive our next development phase, but I want to make sure I'm not moving in the wrong direction.
Your feedback would really help.
The moment she voiced her intention, she felt a promise of partnership forming.
Anna looked up, her interest piqued. Absolutely, let us meet later today and flesh them out.
As they set a time, the world seemed to brighten.
Cindy understood that collaboration could not only amplify her authority but also transform the narrative around their product.
She returned to her desk with renewed vigor, breathing life into her plans, the terror of Jonathan's criticism slowly simmering down.
The initial feelings of trepidation transformed into a sense of purpose.
The more proactive steps she took, the clearer her trajectory became.
But as night approached and Cindy began to wrap up her day, a nagging feeling settled over her. Would Jonathan try to undermine her collaborative efforts? How far was she willing to take this journey?
She paused, pen hovering over her notebook. The ticking clock reminded her that she was not just building a new future for her product, she was wrestling with a professional identity that demanded both resilience and vulnerability.
The
stakes were set, and her newly formed alliance with Anna could bring her ambitions to fruition or shatter them under external scrutiny. The arduous dance of personal growth had just begun, and the pressure was mounting.
Could she confront Jonathan once more, turning the tide of his skepticism into an unexpected ally?
The question lingered, propelling her toward what lay ahead. With the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows through the office windows, Cindy felt the weight of anticipation as she prepared for her meeting with Anna. She had spent the last 2 hours meticulously outlining their workshop agenda, driven by a sense of urgency. This was her chance to cultivate not only her own ideas but also to inspire her colleagues to embrace a more innovative approach to their projects. As the clock ticked toward their scheduled meeting time, her stomach fluttered with a mix of excitement and anxiety. She remembered the last time she stood up for her ideas, the thrill of that moment came rushing back.
Yet, Jonathan's cynical remarks still loomed large in her mind.
This time, however, she wasn't facing the opportunity alone. She had Anna by her side, a potential ally who shared her vision. When Anna arrived, she was bright-eyed and full of energy.
"Wow, you really pulled this together," she said, glancing over the agenda. "I love how you link user feedback directly to product enhancements. It's compelling."
Cindy felt the tension ease slightly.
"Thanks. I think if we present it well, we can sway the team's perspective.
It's not just about saving face, it's about moving toward a culture of proactive development." As they exchanged ideas, Cindy remembered the moments in previous meetings where Jonathan's dismissive attitude had stifled her input. But this felt different. Their conversation flowed easily, brimming with creativity and enthusiasm. Ideas bounced back and forth between them like a game of table tennis, invigorating both women with fresh resolve. They discussed potential activities for the workshop, group discussions, interactive brainstorming sessions, and even inviting a few team members to lead conversations on their own experiences with user feedback. Each suggestion strengthened Cindy's resolve. It was as if they were building a fortress fortified with new insights, shielded from Jonathan's anticipated derision. The workshop was not merely a project, it was a declaration of intent. This was her opportunity to shift the corporate culture from one of resistance to resilience, and she intended to seize it fully. However, with each passing moment in their brainstorm, an unsettling thought gnawed at the edges of her excitement.
What if Anna hesitated when the workshop rolled around? Would her enthusiasm falter in front of the team?
The specter of Jonathan's skepticism haunted her, threatening to unravel the newfound purpose they were forging. As they concluded their meeting, Anna said with confidence, "Let us show them what is possible."
"I'm in your corner." "Thanks, Anna."
"That means a lot," Cindy replied, feeling the swell of hope. Perhaps, together, they could change the narrative that had shackled her ambitions for so long. Yet, as she walked back to her desk, the fear of Jonathan's potential backlash bubbled up once more.
What would happen when they presented their ideas?
Would the collaborative spirit they'd nurtured be crushed under the weight of his skepticism? That night, she lay awake, tossing and turning as the anxiety clawed at her mind. She realized she was not just fighting for a workshop, she was challenging the very fabric of how her team operated. They were on the precipice of change, yet uncertainty loomed like a specter. Cindy understood that every step forward demanded more than just ambition. It required a confrontation not just with Jonathan but with her own fears of inadequacy. The vision of what could be flared brightly before her, fueling her determination to push past her limits. As dawn broke, she felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over her. She would not only present her case at the workshop, she would dissect every doubt, challenging the narrative that had long stifled her growth. The real confrontation was approaching, not just with Jonathan, but with the doubts that had long inspired her fears. Would she have the courage to reshape not just her future but the dynamics of her workplace? The moment of truth drew near, as Cindy prepared herself for a battle that could redefine not only her career but her identity. The stakes had never been higher, and the pressure of transformation was palpable. Would she have the strength to stand tall and face the storm brewing ahead? Cindy arrived early the next morning, the office still cloaked in the hush of dawn. These early hours, when the world was just beginning to wake, had always been her sanctuary. As she settled into her workspace, she reviewed her notes again, a last-minute run-through before the workshop. With each bullet point, her conviction hardened. She noticed her breath growing shallow as the clock ticked closer to the meeting time. The corridor outside buzzed with muffled voices, a reminder that soon, she would be under the scrutinizing gaze of her colleagues. Anna approached with a smile that momentarily eased her trepidation. "I brought coffee," Anna announced, handing Cindy a steaming cup. "We're going to nail this." Her reassurance was a lifeline, but the specter of Jonathan still hovered ominously. His skepticism had been like a stone cast into the still waters of her confidence, sending ripples that lingered too long. Just yesterday, his dismissive remarks about the last team initiative echoed in her mind when she questioned the effectiveness of their current processes. They had been stifling, and now, armed with new ideas, she was prepared to defy him. As they entered the meeting room, Cindy took a moment to observe the faces gathered. Some were eager, some indifferent, but most were expectantly curious. She felt a spark of electricity in the air. They were ready for a change, even if they didn't yet realize it. It occurred to her that this workshop could be the ignition they all needed, a chance to depart from the mundane and venture into the innovative. Cindy took her place at the front, Anna beside her. "Thanks for joining us," she began, her voice steady, though inside she battled her butterflies. "Today, we'll discuss how to integrate user feedback into our development process in a way that enhances our project outcomes." She gestured to the agenda, feeling the rhythm of her words start to settle her nerves. As they moved through the interactive segments of the workshop, Cindy felt the atmosphere shift. She encouraged the team to voice their opinions, creating a dialogue instead of a monologue. It was exhilarating to see her colleagues engage, building on each other's ideas with a newfound energy. For the first time, she recognized her leadership potential in real time. She was not just advocating for change, she was embodying it. But amid the rising enthusiasm, a familiar shadow crossed her mind. The workshop's success relied on her ability to counter any skepticism that would surely come from Jonathan. Just then, he interjected, his tone laced with skepticism. "Are we really going to ignore the facts? User feedback can often be misguided." The tension in the room thickened. Cindy's heart raced, the walls of her fortress starting to crack. This was the moment she anticipated. Would she stand up and confront him, or would doubt drive her back? She took a breath, focusing her thoughts, intently aware of the weight of her hesitance. "Actually, Jonathan, user feedback, when properly analyzed, offers us invaluable insights," she replied, attempting to keep her tone even, though her voice wavered slightly. "It's not about blindly accepting every suggestion, it's about discerning patterns that can radically improve our products." Anna's approving nod bolstered Cindy's resolve as she spoke. In that instant, she realized the confrontation was not solely with Jonathan, but with the ingrained way she viewed her own capabilities. Could she influence the outcome, even in the face of adversity? The room quieted, awaiting Jonathan's response. He was a formidable opponent, but as Cindy locked eyes with him, she felt her confidence surge. "I'm proposing we analyze user feedback collectively, to empower our decision-making processes and foster accountability among ourselves." The workshop rolled on, and while doubt still flickered in Cindy's mind, she pushed through it with urgency. This was a pivotal moment, and she chose to own it, reveling in the spirited discussions that erupted among the team. As the meeting wrapped up, applause filled the air. For the first time in a long time, Cindy felt a spark of triumph. But just as jubilance washed over her, she sensed Jonathan's eyes on her, his expression inscrutable. The encounter had shifted, but she knew this battle wasn't fully won. Now the challenge shifted to maintaining this momentum and confronting any verbal barbs he might unleash later. As she gathered her materials, a lingering question filled her mind: had she truly made a substantial impact, resilient against future skepticism, or was this merely a fleeting victory? With the air thick with possibility, she exited the room determined to solidify this new trajectory, both for herself and her team. The path of transformation beckoned, but lurking dangers awaited. Her real test loomed ahead as she prepared for the fallout. Would she be able to regroup and hold her ground in the face of Jonathan's relentless pushback? Cindy walked into the office the following day with a renewed sense of purpose. The workshop had successfully unfolded. She had stood tall amidst skepticism and transformed not just the narrative of her project but also her place within the team. Each breath she took felt like a win. She was no longer that cleaning lady afraid of being dismissed. She had earned her place at the table. As the sun streamed through the office windows, illuminating her workspace, she settled down to review the feedback from her colleagues. Praises and constructive suggestions flooded in, affirming her instincts from the user panel had been profoundly accurate. Writing down her plans for the next steps, the confidence began to solidify itself as part of her identity rather than a fleeting moment. "Cindy, are you free for a quick chat?" The smooth voice of Mr. Thompson broke through her concentration. His gaze was steady, free of any traces of condescension. A nod was all it took for him to join her at her desk. "You've made an impressive impact in the last few weeks," he began, his eyes gleaming with sincerity. "The enthusiasm you've sparked with the team is palpable. Have you thought about leading the next phase in product development?" A pulse of excitement surged through her. "Yes, I believe I can lead the implementation of the user feedback into actionable steps. I have some initial ideas on how we can integrate suggestions and refine our processes." "Excellent. I want you to be at the forefront of driving this change," he confirmed, his expression serious yet supportive. Cindy's heart raced. This was it. This was the confirmation of her worth not just to herself, but to her peers. No longer would she be relegated back to the periphery. She had proven her capabilities. She had taken on the skepticism of Jonathan and turned it into fuel for her resolve. However, as she detailed her thoughts to Mr. Thompson, the memory of Jonathan's dismissive remarks flicked to the forefront of her mind. Aaron, an old colleague, had once told her that power dynamics would always exist. With Jonathan's presence looming large around the workplace, how could she maintain her newfound credibility? "We can integrate training sessions with the development team to ensure everyone's on the same page," she suggested. Her voice held the melody of certainty as she spoke. "Working together will foster unity and improve our product even more effectively than before. You're seeing the bigger picture, Cindy. I'm counting on you to make this change happen, and I have no doubt you'll do it." His faith in her buoyed her spirit, crystallizing her intentions into resolute actions. That was her moment. She wasn't just looking for validation. She was crafting her legacy. Days turned into weeks filled with productive brainstorming sessions where Cindy encouraged open dialogues, bridging gaps among the engineering team and creating a synergistic atmosphere. Each successful meeting chipped away at Jonathan's critical stance. Each step forward fortified her status as both a leader and innovator. One morning, as she prepared for yet another team meeting, she felt a sense of nostalgia creeping in. She recalled her first days as a cleaning lady whose voice went unheard. The transition seemed remarkable now. She had achieved not just acceptance, but recognition. She was contributing to something much larger, improving the very technology that touched users' lives. Then, in the middle of one session, Jonathan surprised her. "Cindy, I must admit, I've underestimated the impact of your leadership. The user feedback we've integrated has significantly improved our user satisfaction scores." The acknowledgement, in front of the entire team, resonated deeply. It was a turning point. Her journey would not just be about succeeding in her role but about influencing a culture focused on growth and innovation. She had conquered her fears and insecurities, stretching herself beyond limits she thought were immutable. Transitioning her informal role into a recognized leader galvanized her spirit. Collaborating seamlessly. with a group of individuals who before may have overlooked her felt empowering. Cindy had become a guiding beacon for others, amplifying their voices as well. No longer did she fear Jonathan's opinions or the shadows of doubt that lingered. She understood the journey of growth was fraught with challenges, yet she had equipped herself to face them. As Cindy wrapped up the meeting, a wave of gratitude washed over her. She had not just achieved visibility but had also earned respect. She was respected, trusted, and above all, she felt fulfilled. There it was, the sweet taste of accomplishment, an affirmation that she had transformed. From the cleaning lady wishing to be seen to a leader shaping her team's directions, she had sculpted a journey of individual triumph. It was time to move toward new opportunities, new innovations. Her legacy was firmly being written. And in that moment, she finally saw a future wide open with potential, her voice echoing through the halls, demanding to be heard not just for herself, but for those like her who dared to dream bigger. Now, as she looked ahead, it was time to take this story to the next level. Your story can begin now too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.